It began 26 years ago when my twin boys were born. They were 13 weeks premature and weighed just over a pound each. They spent the first 3.5 months of their life in the neonatal intensive care unit at Foothills Hospital. I didn't live here at the time. I lived in Kelowna and I was airvac to Calgary because of them being so premature. I was alone. I didn't know anyone here, and I was a first-time mom. So it was there that I began my journey of understanding the needs of my boys and planning for their arrival home. Fear of the unknown of taking two medically fragile babies home. My response to that, after getting over the shock and getting my babies home, was joining the Multiple Birth Association to educate myself and have a support group of people who shared lived experience. At the age of 18 months, one of my sons was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. This began my journey to understand the special needs system for children with cerebral palsy so that I could give the best care possible to my son. Fear of the unknown of what his future would look like. My family joined the Cerebral Palsy Association, again to have a support group of people with shared experience. At the age of 8, my other son was diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder. This began my journey to understand the mental health system for youth as it pertained to my son's needs. I needed to understand so that I could support my son to be as successful as possible. Again, fear of the unknown for his future. I became an education assistant at this time because I thought that would open opportunities for me to learn more about special needs children, and it gave me an opportunity to help kids like my kids. I later went on to finish my education degree and become a teacher. When I had been married for 16 years, my husband made the decision to turn to drugs. That ended our marriage. This began my journey to understand addiction as well as the court system. I needed to understand what had happened to my family so that I could best care for my boys as we all dealt with the trauma. Fear of the unknown of being a single mom with bills to pay and two special needs kids. I took a leave of absence from work for a couple of months, made sure my kids were okay, and got back to it. During this time, I also completed a master's degree, and in 2018, I got my certification as a family peer support worker. Again, being a family peer support worker meant that I was surrounded by people and giving support from lived experience. Always comes back to lived experience for me. Having my certification now gave me the opportunity to help others, which is incredibly important to me. So now we fast forward to November 2021. My son, who has cerebral palsy and he's also nonverbal, fell off his horse during therapeutic riding, and he ended up with a compound fracture of his sacrum. He was in hospital for 3 weeks, and I needed to be by his side 24/7 because I was his voice, I was his advocate. Fear of the unknown of how this serious injury would affect his mobility and his life moving forward. I have never seen my son in such great pain, and he has been through a lot and many hospital stays. I sat with my son, watching him in pain. He was not allowed to have any visitors due to the COVID protocol, and due to bed shortages, we were put on the unit with patients who were unaware of their surroundings and so would wander in and out of his hospital room. So I had to constantly be on guard, for a lack of a better way to put it. So fear of the unknown, of not knowing what was coming next. When he got out of the hospital, I dove into building my coaching business because I had seen yet again the huge gap that exists for support for caregivers out there. At no time during the 3-week hospital stay did I have anyone come to me and say, "How are you?" Not one time. The wellness center at the hospital was closed due to COVID. Any services that the hospital had were all online, and when you tried to contact them, you got a voicemail message. There was nothing. So I'm doing my coaching business and my certifications, etc., to educate myself, but at the end of the day, it's to help others.